The first thing, in reviewing your address to the General Assembly, you stated that you wouldn't back down from your reform agenda. My impression of part of Secretary of Education Arnie Duncan's, what he's done with whom he picked and what's come out in the news, is to give the unions a bit more of a negotiating power with the states that haven't yet gotten money. I'm wondering if that's a concern of yours at all.
No, I don't think it is a concern, because we've been committed all along to doing whatever we can to work collaboratively with our teachers' unions, and so I don't think that it has changed the way that we want to tackle that. I do think that the second round we're going to be able to do a better job of collaborating with our teachers' unions and everybody across the state, because everything is transparent at this point. In the first round, the applications were it was so competitive that we were worried about sharing our application broadly, because we didn't want other states that we were competing against to have our application, and it was just nobody really knew what other states were up to, and it was just much different, and we were much more cautious about that. And I think this time we don't have that worry, and we can just be as transparent and as we would have been originally if we felt like we could have for other reasons. The two states that were awarded the Race to the Top grant in the first round, Tennessee and Delaware, have plans in place that are just as bold and aggressive as the ones that we have in place in Rhode Island, and they have their teachers' union support. And so I don't think that it's necessary for us to change our plans in order to get support from our teachers' unions. I think that what we have to do is make sure that folks know what it is we're doing, that they have a part, that they're part of the process, that that's clear in the application, that things are explained, how it's going to be done. And we've learned a lot from other applications and can use that to inform the way that we lay ours out. So that's how we're going to go about it.
Okay. Just part of the context of the question, is in researching merit pay systems for a discussion in my hometown of Tiverton, the impression I got was that in Texas particularly, the initial version was almost designed to fail among right-leaning activist types. That's a suspicion whenever unions are involved, that if they don't like the reform, they'll find a way to make it not work, and then it goes away when it doesn't show the metrics that everybody wants. So that, I'm hearing, is not a concern of yours. At what point, I guess, would it not be worth the federal money?
Well, I'm not going to put any application forward that I'm not completely confident in. And our application for Race to the Top funding is completely consistent with our strategic agenda. So, in other words, everything that we're doing when it comes to educator evaluation and certification and everything that we have planned that's in our application is also in our strategic agenda. Now, how we do it and to what extent we can do it and how quickly we can do it might be a little bit different, but it's not going to change what we do. And so I'm not going to put any plan forward that I don't feel confident is the right design.
Okay. A little bit different. Do you have any concerns that education seems to be moving farther and farther toward a more centralized state and a national perspective, where a person of authority such as yourself would be the one who determines whether this will work or not, and less the people back home, the parents and the local communities? Does that concern you at all, or do you not see that as a trend? Or
No, I think I do see the trend that you're talking about, and I think that for me the distinction comes in is it's the difference between the how and the what. I think that as a state right now, as a region actually right now, through our standards, we've said what needs to be taught. What is it that children need to know and be able to do in 3rd grade and 6th grade and 9th grade and so forth. Where I draw the line is in how things are done. I think that when you start making decisions about what curriculum is implemented, what books are used, and things like that. I think that it's important at that point for the local community and for teachers specifically. I think it's important for teachers to have a lot of autonomy around that, because there isn't just one way to teach an area of content or a skill or to develop knowledge in our students. And if you're doing if you're teaching students a lesson on symmetry, it even depends on where you live. If you are in a place where you are able to have a butterfly garden on your school grounds, and it would be incredibly relevant to the students to do your whole symmetry lesson around butterflies. But maybe if you live someplace else, maybe you live in Tiverton or someplace, and yours is on seashells, because there's, so I think that it's important for educators to be able to make those decisions with their local community involved. One of the things that we're proposing, and one of the things that we'll be able to do with Race to the Top, if we have that funding, is to be able to bring educators together and to pay them to develop curriculum and develop units of study around things that they do already in their school, in their district, or their classroom, but with our assistance helping to make sure that it's aligned to the standards. And that would be a tremendous resource. And then they can share that lesson, that unit of study, with educators all across the state, and use one another's lessons and units of study, and it would be really powerful.
You mentioned the need for unique lessons depending on the teacher and the community, which raises the question of administrators and their subjective power to manage the school. There's some noise about the General Assembly maybe hopefully passing something that would restrict what can be negotiated as far as management rights and such. What are your thoughts on that, as far as your role in guiding that change?
Well, I think that I definitely respect the collective bargaining decision-making process and the negotiations that go on locally. I think that we have in our state some of the agreements that I've seen go beyond what I think is appropriate to have included in agreements. And we have a tool now in the basic education program to be able to start to put some parameters around that, to say that when it comes to things that affect the quality of education that we're providing students in this state, those things aren't negotiable. So, or at least they're not negotiable about whether they're done. Maybe how they're done, maybe that's negotiable. So an example would be the notification that I gave the superintendents in the fall that in the new basic education program, the teacher placement needed to be based on teacher qualifications and student need and not on seniority. And so that's just a decision that we've made. It's in the basic education program. Now, what districts put in place instead of that, that's negotiable. They can sit down and talk about, well, what's the design of how we make decisions about how we place teachers. But whether or not it's done is not negotiable.
Okay.